Um, I'm with Rangane Azimzade Tosang, and some of you know we do a podcast. We have been doing a podcast. We momentarily paused, but we've been in virtual meetings a lot together, and it's something that it's been bubbling amongst the team, international team that we've been collectively working on, is how do you make our meetings so that people feel more connected to one another. We've gotten perhaps too efficient with our virtual meetings. And so the topic of this video, we're going to have several videos from some of our other team members. And I wanted to start with Rangane. What's been going on for you around virtual meetings? Like, how are you viewing them, and what are you doing, and just anything that you want to bring up?
Yeah, it's such a great question that I think so many people in our field have been exploring for the last 8+ months. And I'll just say sort of like when the whole pandemic set in and everything had to switch to virtual very, very quickly, there was like, I remember thinking and reading and seeing so many of my colleagues like, oh, these new technologies you can use to really help support your facilitation online. And part of it was really exciting. And then part of it was like a lot. And a lot of people dove straight into trainings. I was very much slow on that part of it. And there were a couple of reasons. One, I think that anytime I see people rushing toward any one direction, I always kind of like to take an extra pause and really think about my motivation and my need or my desire to move in that direction, to make sure that I'm not just sort of following the crowd, so to speak, that there's real reason for it. Um, I guess in sort of translating that, if I'm learning all these new technologies, am I really realistically going to be using them in all of my meetings? A, and then I think B, will my participants that I'm working with be able to also know how to use these technologies, knowing that people were also very overwhelmed, especially people who had not really had to work in a virtual setting prior to the pandemic. Just getting into Zoom was such a transition for so many people. So just trying to be really thoughtful about using and learning new technologies that could be very user friendly. And even though there are some very, very sophisticated platforms, just trying to be thoughtful about like, what's the bandwidth and capacity of participants to also learn those platforms in order to be able to use them. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, no, that's great. You mentioning at the beginning, and I've been feeling the same way. So a lot of us have really learned a few platforms very well, and now there's all these other ideas as we're becoming kind of exhausted by the just the squares in Zoom, or the number of links we have to click on, or the fact that some people can't use Google products. And there's some great things around on Google to use that are free. But you talked about some way of starting your virtual meetings that do help people connect. And I wonder if you could share how you do that.
Yes, it is a very, very simple question, but I have found to be interestingly incredibly effective at just sort of bringing the whole self into the room. And the question, and if anyone who's watching this who's been in a meeting with me is like, yes, we know that question so well. And the question is just generally a round of introductions when you're doing those to ask, your name, your affiliation, and then how are you arriving today? Just how are you arriving as a whole human, as your whole self? How are you coming into the space? And what I've found is that when people answer that question, it's creating a window for them to really be able to just name the tension or the stress or the anxiety or whatever that they're holding in that moment, and to sort of lay it out and not to have to hold it all by themselves, because now the whole group has heard it and is now holding it. The other thing that it's doing is it's also creating this really beautiful invitation for empathy to come into the room. Because as you're sharing what you're dealing with, what you're managing, what you might be worried or stressed about, there's a good chance that one or two of those items is something that I'm also managing, addressing, potentially worrying about. And even if I don't know you, I automatically now feel a little more connected to you because I know that we are both sort of dealing with something similar. And I think prior to the pandemic, I was trying to do that, and now that everything is virtual, it's just sort of like almost like my own personal requirement before we dive into whatever the business of the day is.
So, how are you arriving? And
How are you
how
arriving?
would you answer that? And then I'll answer that too.
Well, I would say I am arriving, for example, today, I'm arriving pretty exhausted. I'm just feeling really, really tired. I think this has been a really intense month. So much has been happening. And I could just I'm really looking forward to some time to just rest and sort of recuperate and just kind of reset. How are
Mm-hmm.
you arriving?
Well, I'm arriving after about 2 weeks of not feeling so well and just very relieved that I'm feeling better and that it's not raining in this current moment. It has been raining a lot. And I'm also arriving with quite a bit of anxiety about the workload that I have ahead of me and wondering how I'm going to fit it all in and feel like still be able to kind of keep my nervous system really calm. So yeah, I could see that would be a nice way of really being authentic with each other. Yeah, taking the time just to notice. Yeah, because I think what happens is in a real setting, in a face-to-face meeting, we enter in, and the first few people that enter the room are usually chatting about what's going on for you and helping themselves to coffee or trying to figure out how to get their notes arranged or their laptop set up or whatever. And there's just kind of that bantering and joking and finding out how, oh, hey, Raja, how are you doing? I haven't seen you for like 3 months or whatever, like it's nice to have you at the meeting. So I think that's kind of what we face when we have those Zoom squares where we've all got our mics muted because we don't want to have a cacophony. And you told me, and Mariah, who we're also going to have a video with too, is told me about this tool called Space Chat. You want to just give a tiny bit of background on that? And I'm going to show people on my screen. I'm just trying to. I think I'm going to leave, and then show people how to set it up on by screen sharing.
Yeah, that sounds great. So the tool is called Spatial Chat, and I got introduced to it through an event that I was doing. And it was actually the way that we debriefed. I was on a panel and then they brought in all the panelists to debrief. But basically what it is sort of a platform that's really trying to create or simulate, I guess, a sort of social connection where you get to live outside of a box, like the Zoom box, if you will. And so you can come into this space. They have a trial room where you literally can come in and other random people can be in there checking it out as well. But you have the ability to kind of move yourself as an icon around the whole room. And the closer that you get to another person in the room, the more you can hear them. So it's sort of like, it's meant to simulate walking by somebody. When you walk by someone, you kind of come into closer hearing range. You can have a conversation. The further you move away, the less you can hear them. So if we're across from the room in the spatial chat, I can't hear you. But if I'm standing, my little icon is next to your icon, we can have a conversation.
Yeah. So we did this a little earlier, but I'm just going to screen share how we got in. And so here's the spatial.chat, and just go to the try me or the try me here, and you click on it, and it's going to ask for your name, and my name was already here, and I don't put anything about, and I just continue. And we weren't able to access the microphone, but that's okay because I'm using the Zoom microphone. But I'm just going to join the space, and Rangane is going to join the space as well. And you'll see Barb and Rangane are here. And so I'm going to kind of like move closer to Rangane because I've heard that she's going to have a really interesting conversation on the virtual meeting dynamic. And maybe we would end up going to this classroom, and I'm in the classroom, and now I don't know, Rangane, can you join me in the classroom? There she is. And so we'll kind of pop over here and have this conversation. And then we can go to the meeting hall.
And I'll just keep following Barb around.
She's just going to keep following me, or I'm going to keep following her, and we can chat together. But if I went way over here, she probably couldn't hear me, although I don't know if I'd be attached to the wall there, but I might be sitting on this sofa here. And then finally, we can try the reception area. And this is a beautiful cityscape, and she's going to come and join me there. And so I'll
just sit on the couch next to you.
Sit on the couch. So that's just a little thing. And there'll be other people coming in on this try me, but I'm going to stop screen sharing and just ask you one more question before we go. And thanks so much for the time, because I think virtual meetings are a reality probably for the unforeseeable future. And anything else that you would say to help people really connect with themselves, connect with each other, and feel like we are this human community as opposed to this isolated community?
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing I'll share is in some of the racial healing circle work we've been doing, when we have participants, particularly when we have a lot of people signed up, they'll come into the room and they'll be automatically muted, which, as we talked about, is such a difference versus the in-person space where you come in and you can just, hey, how are you today, right, and start chatting. But in lieu of that sort of immediate conversation, what we've done is we have started to play music, just like a really soft classical or harp or piano music, something that's just very calming to the senses. So as people are coming in, they're being greeted and really welcomed into the space warmly, and they're not just kind of hanging out. So wherever you can sort of tap into those different senses, maybe it's share screening something really beautiful, like a beautiful image that you captured when you were out on your latest walk. I think just wherever we can be inviting in elements of our humanity into the space rather than just diving straight into the agenda really makes a difference for how people feel in the space, especially because the virtual world is sort of like giving us, it allows us to sort of dive right into business and not have to have that human element. So we as facilitators, I think, have to make a little bit more effort to really invite in those moments when we can.
That's great. And can you just take a tiny second to screen share and show people how to find, I don't know if they'll be able to see it though, would they? Screen share, how to share audio. I think it's on share screen, but mine's not coming up right now.
Yeah, so I can sort of just quickly talk through it. So if you click on the share screen button at the bottom and then go up to the very top where you'll see 3 categories. This is basic, advanced, and files. And you click on advanced, and then you'll see an option that says music or computer sound only. And you click on that, it will automatically allow all the participants to hear the audio on your computer really clearly. And the only thing is that when you have that, like music, for example, playing, no one else can share because it's considered a share screen, and you can't, unless you have multiple people, be able to share the screen.
Got it. Yeah, I'm not getting the 3 dots on mine. Where do I find those 3 dots?
So if you click on the shared screen at the top, you'll see something that says basic, advanced, or files.
Okay, that's what I'm not getting. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, and I've done it before, but it could be that I'll play around with it because I know I know it's the share screen option, and I think I have to maybe go on my computer somewhere else. But anyway, I won't take up your time further. Thank you so
no,
much for
thanks
your
for having me.
beautiful tips, and I look forward to trying that trick. Number 1, how
How are you arriving?
how are you arriving today? Number
Mm-hmm.
2, spatial chat, just to get into a different space and move around and follow people in different ways. And we don't know how much it costs. We haven't even looked into that. And number 3,
Just
maybe
tapping into the senses. Mm-hmm.
yeah, tapping into the senses with music or something that gives people a chance to share images or music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Barb.
Bye.